It's bye week time, Mark. So I guess it's fair to start talking about, even though you got 2 games left in a bowl game, what does Iowa need to attack? Where does Iowa need to attack in the portal? I mean, we could be here for a long time discussing that subject. I certainly need to you know publish some content on that on my channel. But what would be your first thought? I'm guessing you'd say quarterback, even though Brendan Sullivan's probably going to be the starter next year. Uh, where else does Iowa need to attack?
So briefly, before we get to that, just think about the changing landscape in the Big Ten. So here we are, the second week of November, where even having an off season like 2022, which finished 7-5 with 7-4 going into the Nebraska game with complete control of the Big Ten Western Division. Who out of the old Big Ten West has the best record in the conference? Iowa does. They're 4-3, and Minnesota's 4-3.
Wait a
I
minute,
believe
4-3. What are you talking?
4-3 in the conference.
Minnesota's 4-3. Okay, yeah.
So the season wouldn't be over. We would be lamenting poor play against teams that they shouldn't lose to, and that they should have control of the division, and it should be over by now. But still, all the marbles would be right on the table to take things over in the final 2 games, and especially with the head-to-head win against Minnesota, and it would all be right there. This is what we talked about the entire offseason. This is a different Big Ten, and the equations are completely different. So we have taken a season that would be disappointing in terms of record, and why aren't we better? But hey, can still go to the championship game, still have it right in front of us, to what are they playing for? They're playing so their record looks better. It's over. It's weird. It's just
Yeah, it
there's
is
so
weird.
much separation.
Yeah, so I don't know, and that's kind of what it's a very odd. I don't know what the fan response is going to be here the next couple of weeks. I think fans were pretty engaged after the game because they were upset. But you and I have always talked about how there's never doesn't seem to be apathy that sets in with Iowa football. It sets in with men's basketball a lot, but it sets in with men's basketball very early and quickly. All right. But like with football, it takes a lot for fans to check out. But this is unprecedented to some extent. So what will they do? What will the fans do? How will they respond? I just I feel bad. I know somebody reached out to me. I don't even remember who it was now here a couple days ago, and basically said, "Hey, I spent a bunch of money preseason so that my son and I could go to the Iowa Nebraska game, and I feel stupid." I mean, and I get it, and I said to him, I'm like, "Well, that's a risk you take whenever you buy tickets to especially a season-ending game, a game 12, of the year. There's always a chance you've played out of it, but it just didn't seem like that was going to happen. So, I don't know. You do you don't do bowl projections, right? You're all about the
I
playoff.
don't. I
You're
don't.
you're all
Well,
about the playoff.
that's my business. Which reminds me, everyone, not going to be simulcasted here on this channel as it has in the past for obvious reasons. But yes, we will do a watch party at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We'll take in all the results, the rankings reveal, take your calls. I will analyze the results. And last week, we did a complete breakdown. We took every team, went through their schedule, went through the various scenarios. Okay, just to let you know, folks, we will be here on the main channel and a number of the other channels that are in playoff contention. Sorry. So no, not bowl projections. What I do release, and to further my point, are Big Ten power rankings. And I have yet to produce the video, but I have done my Big Ten power rankings. I didn't even move. You would think Iowa loses to a quote unquote bad team that they would move down, but all these teams are beating each other, and I didn't even move Iowa down. They're still fifth in the Big Ten, but I did make a statement that from fifth to like 13 is who knows. I got UCLA all the way up to number 7.
Can I just respond to something real quick?
Sure, of course.
this person here in the chat. So I want to make sure, and I'm not trying to defend the TV broadcast, but it's been reported by a number of people. I think it was, and I don't typically get a chance to read a whole lot, but I didn't. The reason I saw this is because I didn't listen to the press conferences yet today from the coordinators. I told you that ahead of time. I believe it was Rob Howe reported the same thing the Fox crew said on Friday night, that Stratton had been working with the linebackers. So you might want to just check your information, whoever this is. I don't know where you're getting your information, but that has been reported by more than just the TV crew on Fox. So I have not reached out to any of my sources, quote unquote, because I don't really know that it's that important. But just to be clear, dot our I's, cross our T's. The idea that Jackson Stratton was working scout team with linebackers, that's been reported by more than just the TV crew. So proceed.
Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, everyone. Corey covering Iowa men's and women's basketball in addition to the football with 2 games left plus a bowl game. So head on over to From the Hawkeye of the Storm right here on YouTube. Corey and I get together, of course, every Tuesday. So mark that down. Make sure you're here talking Hawkeyes football, 4:30 Central Time. The audio is available at From the Hawkeye of the Storm if you want to listen to us and not see our shining faces. So to get to the transfer portal question, to segue, I saw a note online today that Iowa is a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award, which goes to the nation's best offensive line. But most of those guys, as you outlined for us a number of times, but in particular, one broadcast in which we really dove into the offensive line, that it was an offensive line and a lot of players coming into this season, and correct me if I'm wrong, that had a lot to prove. They were veteran players, but not necessarily accomplished veteran players. Well, they have played extremely well, protecting the quarterback, but most notably leading what could be a Heisman finalist campaign by Caleb Johnson, of course. So it's been a strong year by the offensive line, but a lot of veteran players. You, of course, know from individual to individual who's coming back, but I would think that unit's going to be decimated.
Yeah, so there's going to be, because I guess my point in even asking you that question is almost rhetorical, because it's almost like every position is a portal position because they lose so many people, and this is not a program that typically throws freshmen into the four. Now there are other guys, right? There's like linebacker. They're going to, assuming Carson Shire is healthy, he going to get a job. Jaden Harrell played because Jay Higgins got dinged up on Friday. He going to get a job. Kyler Fisher's gone along with Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins. So, after that, those two, I think Cash will be interesting. Castro's gone. So is it John Nestor? Does Wampa stick around? There's been chatter about possibly him being moved on, going somewhere else. I don't know if that's the case, but yeah, I mean, there's so many different positions you can look at. Cornerback has been a spot of weakness here in recent time. At least the spot where Cooper DeJean left a hole. So I think everywhere besides special teams, everywhere besides special teams should be, there should be some candidates there. And I was always going to bring some guys in from the JUCO ranks, usually as walk-ons. And, Caden Weegen's a great success story. He's also a semifinalist for a national award that was announced today. So that's cool. Congratulations to him. He's been a great return guy. And so I think quarterback, a couple of these positions are dependent on what happens with the depth there. Like, does Marco Linez stick around? I mentioned Wampa. Does he stick around? Does TJ Hall stick around at corner? So some of these, it's like you almost have to supplement what you have just with depth in the portal. It's not necessarily you're just trying to go get starters, but you've got to get warm bodies in there. And, offensive line's an interesting one because they have a ton of guys that they've recruited that are just sitting back there waiting their turn. But are they ready for the big stage? I mean, Jack Dotzler, Cale Crow, Trevor Lauk from Indiana, Roncalli, Indiana, I believe it is. So lots of places, lots of players, lots of places these guys come from. It's just going to be intriguing, and I for one am going to be intrigued by this offense next year because we're finally going to see a full offseason with Tim Lester. And so, regardless of what he brings in the portal or what he doesn't bring in the portal, we're going to be going into next year with total question marks because I have a pretty strong feeling, I think most people do, that Caleb Johnson's gone. So if Liddell can hold on to this, this tight knit group of running backs, they should be pretty good at running back. But there's going to be all these new offensive linemen blocking for them. So we'll see. We'll see. I do know that up front, um, one big void that I think Kirk probably um, prioritizes more than other spots is center. So that's going to probably be priority number one as far as ensuring they have somebody, whether it be Leighton Jones, who's I believe played a lot of defensive line in high school, and they like him at center. And Michael Mislinski is another guy. Does Tyler Ellsbury have 1 year? I'd have to look at eligibility charts, but that's probably going to be priority number one. That's kind of where Kirk tends to start and then work your way out. But yeah, Logan Jones, Mason Richmond, Nick DeYoung hadn't played much. Boy, they'd love to have him as depth next year, but they won't get that. Jennings Dunker will be a return, assuming he doesn't leave for the league. I don't know where these guys, where their NFL stock is. Isn't it interesting, Mark? They could have, and I don't know this to be the case. Couldn't they have record numbers drafted? We've talked about like the post 2009, was it post 2009 draft? How many guys got drafted? It was something like 7 guys or something like that. They could push that this year. There's a conversation we could have since it's a bye week. Who's getting drafted?
Yeah, I would simply be looking up their draft profiles because I have no idea.
But I
I
mean,
know who's good at the college level, of course, but
who has a chance to get drafted? Let's ask that.
okay.
Jamari Harris should get drafted somewhere, right?
Yes.
He's a starting cornerback at Iowa, and he's the star of that room. Had a bad moment or two Friday, but he's their best player, so he should get drafted. Caleb Johnson, assuming he leaves, he's going to be drafted. Sebastian Castro, is it fair to say he will be drafted?
Yeah.
I would think so.
He might be number 1, right?
The first player drafted. Well, yeah, maybe depending
yeah.
on Caleb. I think Caleb could end up being a first or second round pick, probably second. So there's 3. Jay Higgins is going to be drafted. Nick Jackson's going to be drafted, right? I mean, I think those guys have. That's 5 right there, Mark. That is 5 right there. We have not touched offensive line. Now, Quinn Schulte, if I was to say a starter who's going to be gone, who probably won't get drafted, I would probably go Quinn because he's a former walk-on who's slightly undersized. But I always had good success with safeties. Amani Hooker, Geno Stone, Dane Belton, Desmond King. So I know Desmond King, corner at Iowa. But so yeah, I that's 5, and then Logan Jones, that's 6. He's going to get drafted. Mason Richmond, or who else is leaving up front? Bo Stevens, I believe, has 1 year left. But there's, I just rattled off 7. And let's see, nobody at receiver. Lachey, is Luke Lachey going to be drafted? An Iowa tight end who's had a quiet year, but it's a new offense and was really good in the old offense. I think he'd have to be drafted, right? That's 8. That's 8 guys.
I definitely thought he would be drafted entering this season, and I don't think that he has personally done anything to hurt his draft stock. I just think it's circumstantial.
Yeah, that's 8 guys. And then who am I missing? Y.A. Black. He's huge. I don't know that he's had a great year. The coaching staff thinks he's done a really nice job just eating up space, and I think that's a fair estimation. But could they have somewhere between 8 to 10 players drafted?
Wow.
How many? And I'm not saying it's going to happen. What's a typical year like for Ohio State and Bama and the Blue Bloods, Georgia?
Ohio State had 10 last year. They've had as many as 14.
Okay.
I think it's typically in the 8 to 10 range.
Okay. So, I mean, in Iowa's probably more like the 4 to 5 range.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they double that typical number, that's going to be pretty high in that draft class. I don't know, we'll see, but the draft is going to be fun. That's going to be a fun. Even though we're going to be, if they draft, what if they get like 10 guys drafted, which is probably not going to happen. Not that many, but if they get 10 guys drafted, we're going to be like, man, what could have been, right? What could have been?